Amen.
Amen.
Well, welcome. Welcome to those I haven't, I don't know that you've been here before. Maybe you have, but I'm so glad you are all here. Today we have our training, and first of all, I want to tell you, welcome to 2022. It's going to be a great year. We have thought about this year and decided that our theme for the year should be coming to our senses. Now, does anyone know why we would pick that theme for this particular year? Yep. Besides my staff who already know. Does anybody know why? Unmute yourself.
1950 census.
Census, exactly.
Because of
the 1950 census is coming out in April. And the 1921 England census is already on Find My Past, but when I try to access it, I have to upgrade. So I don't know how good that is. So we might have to wait for it to come into Family Search or Ancestry so we can have it for free. But those two are landmark censuses that are, I already saw a Facebook post, somebody said, oh, I found somebody I'd been looking for. So these will be great. Some of you might be on that census. I will almost be on that census. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity this year to focus on indexing so that we can all help with indexing the census. But we also thought it'd be a great opportunity to help teach the members of our wards or people that we work with how to use the census. Because how many people know how to use the census that are just basically learning how to do research or just trying to find an ancestor? I mean, the census is really, if you think about it, it is the backbone of research. Whenever I go to start on a problem, as long as it's in the 1800s or 1900s, I go to the census as one of my first things to go to. Because it really, if I find them on all of the censuses, it gives me an idea of where they lived, where they maybe moved to, who's living with them. In one case, I had great grandma living with them. You know, Aunt Susie could be living with them. You find out their occupation. You find out all kinds of things about them that may help you to identify them as your ancestor or to give you more information about them and their children. You know, how many people know that on the 1900 and 1910 census, they tell you how many children that mother's had and how many are still alive. You know, that is great information if you're trying to find missing children. How many people that know that on the 1930 census, it tells you the age of their first marriage. So it gives you an idea of either that couple's marriage or maybe they had a prior marriage. So there's a lot of things in the census that will help to identify more family members or even help further your research. Even the censuses that don't have people on them, I mean, don't have individual people on them, just the head of the household, can be valuable. I was just doing a project this week where I was able to help narrow down who the father was by the census because of who was living in the area where he married. And so it kind of narrows the field. And so the census is vitally important if people want to help find relatives, whether it's a direct line ancestor or if it's trying to find those empty chairs of their relatives who are cousins. So we think it's so important to focus on that this year and on indexing. Indexing not only will help the 1950 census, but as I've repeated over and over again, all indexers go to the Celestial Kingdom. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's true. I know it's not really true, but you know, it really is helping the work move so incredibly fast with these indexers. And if people can learn how to do it and get addicted to it, just think how fast we're going to get things indexed. So that's our focus this year. So we have two main goals. Our first goal, and I know this is kind of a big goal, but for every member to know how to use a census. But, you know, if we can start, we can try. And also how to index. So that's wrapped up in one goal. The other goal, well, let me talk about that one first. So the challenge that I'm issuing to you all and all my staff and all the lead consultants, whether you're here or not here, is to try and find your 8 greats on the census. I think that would be a good objective for different wards, is just say, okay, your challenge for this quarter or this next half a year is to see if you can find your 8 greats on the census and teach them how. To further that, we're going to have activities every month this year to make up for the last 2 years. And every month we'll either have a big one we're trying to do this month with breakfast and everything, where next Saturday we're going to teach how to index and how to use the census. And we're hoping people will bring their laptops so they can do hands-on. And so we're going to help in that effort. If you want to encourage people in your ward to come to these activities, they'll either be instructional and or hands-on, so people can actually learn how to do both at the same time. They can learn how and do it during those activities. And those are always held on the 3rd Saturday of the month, usually at 9 o'clock in the morning at the Stake Center. If we have a lot of people, we'll be in the cultural hall. If not, we'll be in the Relief Society room, but we'll always let you know ahead of time. So that's our one goal, our main goal. The other goal we have is that we learned that this year is the 10th year anniversary for the Temple to Temple Run. So to get on board with that, we thought we could also have a goal of helping members learn how to find an ancestor to take to the temple or a relative to take to the temple. Because
Take the run.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what they're supposed to do. So we're also incorporating that in our monthly activities. So we're going to teach indexing, census, and how to find those empty chairs. So, and it's going to be really hands-on type of thing. This first one will be more lecture type with the hands-on too, but from now on after that, it's going to be hands-on until April, when we're going to have the big kickoff, and we'll probably set some fun goals with the 1950 census and helping with that effort. So those are our plans for the year, and we're pretty excited. Then after the 10 Y2K, no, not Y2K, Temple to Temple Run, we'll have a few other main activities. We're going to have a Hispanic one again in August, like we used to. We're going to have the one about the Native American that we didn't have last year in October. So we're hoping to have some more in-depth type activities closer to the end of the year. And always in our training, every second Sunday of the month was when we have training, we're going to focus on the census and indexing. So it will be valuable. You know, you may already know what to do, but then if you do, then invite some of your other consultants in the ward who don't and have them come.
I have a question.
Yes.
The last census I worked on, 1940, they had us do like a whole page which had like 50 names on it. Is that what they're going to do again?
This is what I know that is not firsthand about the census coming up. I think they're going to try to do it machine indexed, and then have the second person go through and verify that the computer that indexed it got it correct.
Awesome.
Is that about right, according to what you've heard, Paul? I'm not hearing you, so you must be muted.
Family Search, yeah, they in one of their influencer events, they discussed that the 1950 census is going to be machine indexed, but then will be verified by that the indexing part of it will be that we'll go through and verify that it got it right.
Cool. But we can help with that then? We'll be able to help with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in other words, instead of having one person index it and another person go through and arbitrate or confirm it, the machine will do the first part, and then the live person will go through and check the accuracy of what the computer did and correct what isn't accurate.
Okay.
Depending on the
means-
handwriter of this enumerator might be quite a bit of work or not very much work. So
Yes, yes.
Very
So
true.
that's going to be very much quicker, I would think. I would think that it would take close to half as much work by the indexers to get it done.
I think 1940 was 4 months. So I know they're trying to beat that goal.
Oh,
Trying to
awesome.
get it finished in 4 months?
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
Paul,
Wouldn't that
do
be
you know
great?
anything about the 1921 when Family Search will have that available by
I
chance?
don't know when the Family Search will have that available. I know that it's currently available through, is it through the British National Archives?
Find My Past
Find
has
My
it,
Past
but,
has it right now.
but you have to upgrade. That's
Yeah,
what
and you have to pay per view.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna wait for Family Search to get it. John?
I'm already in some of my research in the past month. I'm finding Spanish translations that are being posted on some of the research that I've been doing, translating Spanish into readable English. And several things I've seen, and there's a little tag down at the bottom that says this is a computer generated ordinance. And, check it over and see if you have any comments. I've seen several errors on several of them and told them that one whole book was invalidated because the person thought that the 2 was a 4, and so it was changing all of the dates. But all that year that it was 1920, but the translator thought the 2 was a 4. So I assume that they go in, they listen to those, and then they somehow make it right. But it messed me up till I figured it out and went to the original documents and then looked at the years before and the years after. And that was pretty glaring to me. Even, I don't speak Spanish, but I could figure out the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that they're doing that already.
Yeah.
And
Yep. So if they just have people double checking, then that'll be a good thing. And
And
for
it
you
has
to
to
re-
start out as a learning process and then be refined.
Right.
It can't start out refined.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think the
One-
vision is
one of
that-
one of my grandfathers, who died before I was born, they have his last name as LAF capital FERTY. So I'm gonna go in there and definitely change that around.
Well, and so that you guys will know, and since she brought that up, when we do these presentations, whether it's in training or this Saturdays, we're going to teach you some tricks on how to find people because their names are botched. I mean, my maiden name is Steinbuchel. My mother's maiden name is Kuhnreich. You can imagine all the different variations that you have in trying to find these people.
Yeah.
But I generally can find people on the census. I've only had a couple of times when I've been stumped. So we're going to teach you some tricks along the way of how to find people, especially if you have a weird last name or if you have a Smith. I mean, yeah, I had John Smith. So, that was really fun to find. But we'll teach you some tricks about that. So tune in for those things for the future, because we'd really like to help you to be able to find people, especially ones with different odd spellings. But, I only mentioned England and US, but don't forget that Canada has censuses every 10 years. US is on the zeros. Canada and England are on the ones every 10 years. If you have Volga German people, they have what we call them censuses, but they're extremely valuable. Mexico has a 1930 census. Other countries have censuses. So you just never know. You always want to check and see if they're how good are the censuses for those countries and if they will be helpful to you. So we're excited about helping people learn how to use the census. I don't know what I'd do without it, basically. And so we're excited to do that, teach you about indexing, teach you about finding those elusive ancestors or relatives that you can take to the temple. So those are our goals for the year. So now we're going to turn the time over to Nancy, who's going to teach you a little bit more about the census for our beginning kickoff for the year. Take it away, Nancy.
Okay, first I want to mention that very soon my schedule for classes through May is going to be on our Facebook page. I went through and planned classes for May, and I would call that one series. The very last of those is preparing for Memorial Day. So that you can go to the cemeteries on Memorial Day and be successful in finding your family and in learning more about them. So that will be the last of May, but I've pretty well broken the year up. Now, does that mean that it's positively that I'll never make a change? No, I'll probably will end up making a change, but I don't want to be making a change. So those will be on our Facebook page. For those of you that don't know, our Facebook page name is Provo South Freedom Family History Center. And we always have on there what class or Saturday class time is next. But I hope that we'll put on my whole list for the spring. Many of my
sorry, Nancy. I was going to mention that for all the consultants, I'm going to send you our calendar also for the Saturday classes. And if you want me to, I can attach Nancy's classes to that as well. So I will do that. So
and
that
if you don't have that and you want that, go to chat and put in your name. And if Heather doesn't already have your email address, put your email address down and she will send you those.
If you're a lead consultant and you already got an email from me, then I have your email and you'll automatically get that, or if you're one of the staff. So just if you're not part of that or not already getting emails. Okay, sorry, Nancy.
Okay, so what is in a census? Diana's mentioned this a little bit. The history of censuses in the United States is that the federal government wanted to know who's in the country. So starting in 1790, which was just 7 years after the official formation of our government, the first census was taken. And it was just listed by the head of the household and a little bit about how many more people lived in the house and what their ages were. And each year after that, until lately, it was expanded a little bit. However, everyone in the house was not listed until 1850. But by figuring out, I think these are the children. Is that how many children are listed in this family's name, in this family's household? You can learn a lot about a family even if you don't have all of their names. So one of the things that I do when I'm kind of beginning a research project is just as Diane said, I look up everybody in that family in every census. And I'm amazed at what I learn. So I am going to come down and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you a couple of, okay, I want to turn off the launch button and I want to turn off Facebook. Okay, I want to show you a little bit about how my family looks in the census. So here is my dad in 1940. And as the way I usually pull it up is I would go to my dad, and it looks like I've closed that tab, but I would go to my dad and I would just look under sources and see if somebody else has already found him in the census. And that doesn't mean that I would buy everything that's there, hook, line, and sinker, but I would use that as my beginning. Here I have pulled up my dad in Family Search. And this, the way it was showing there was the new discovery page that shows up sometimes when you look at a source in Family Search. And so here is the 1940 census. And if I look at this, I can learn a little bit about where my dad lived. I can look and I can see that he lived in Montezuma County, Colorado, in Mancos. And it's called, the part of Mancos that he's lived in is called Upper Mancos. And so if I take a little bit of time first to familiarize myself with all of these things here on this part of the page, it's going to answer my questions later. Another thing I do sometimes is I print out a blank copy of that census page, and then I can review the different things that it asks. So as I go down this page, I'm looking for my dad, and so my dad was still a little boy. No, he wasn't. He was a boy. He was a young man in 1940, and so I am expecting to find him living with his dad, and I do. Here is my dad, Claude W. Everett. And oh, this is interesting. Somebody else with the same name lives next door. It says that my dad's, I forget if this is, I think this is his worth, 2000. It says that he's the head of the household, male, 55, married. I believe that this one is no, he didn't go to school this year. He's from, he was born in Colorado, and 5 years ago, he lived in the same house. As we go on further across, we're going to find out that he's a stockman and a farmer in the agriculture. I did. And so as I go through and look at the children, one of the things I make sure I do is I turn on my question ability and I turn on my brain and I look at them, and I'm going to find that I come up with some questions. So he's 55. His wife is 55. Those make sense. Oh, this column right here is education. And it says that my dad, that my grandpa, Claude, had gone, H means high school, to 4 years of high school. And his wife, Lily, went to 4 years of high school. My dad's big brother, Leroy, who is this time is 26 years old, went to 1 year of high school. Did somebody ask a question? Okay. My dad is 25 years old. He's single and living at home, and he has 5 years of college. And it says that 5 years ago, he was living in Fort Collins in Laramie County, Colorado. Well, he apparently wasn't living at home. And because I know a little bit about his history, but if I didn't, I would say, why was he living in Fort Collins 5 years ago? And because they lived on a farm, and in Fort Collins is Colorado Agricultural College, which is Colorado State. That kind of explains that. He must have been studying something agricultural related in college. At least that's a pretty good clue. His younger siblings have 3 years and 4 years of high school. They all lived in the same house. A neighbor lived in the same place, but and his parents lived in the same house, and they lived in the same house. Now, who do you think this Walter is that lives next door? My dad is 25. His brother Leroy is 26, and Walter that lives next door is 29. That gives us a clue that Walter could very likely be his brother. And they have a son that is single and 2 years old. Now, in one of the censuses, not this one, my dad is listed as Mary instead of as Mark. He's listed as Mary, who is a son. And so what I did when I found that strange census is I went to the original record, because I do that instead of reading what somebody else indexed it to be. And I saw that in the original census, something was written under Doris's name that made it look like the K was a Y instead of a K. But I would have also had a question when I noticed that he was a son, because you wouldn't expect Mary to be a son. So as I go on across, I find that in the 1940 census, here at the very end, there are a lot of questions about, did you work last year? Did you make any money last year? How many months were you unemployed? So here I see that his father was a stockman, his brother was a stockman, and he was a foreman working for the Forest Service. And for income, his dad and his brothers all list that they didn't have any income, but he made $1,070. Obviously, this is very much pre-inflation. So I can make a guess that somebody who's working for the Forest Service makes more cash income than someone who is a farmer and stockman in 1940. Now, when I come on down to the person that I wondered if he was a brother, it lists him also as a farmer and stockman, but his little brother is listed as a chore boy. So I guess that they kind of didn't feel like he was quite old enough and quite carrying enough of the load that they would call him a farmer. But obviously he still did work on the farm. So what have I learned about my dad if I did not already know those things about him? I would know that he probably had a brother, Walter. I would know that he had gone to college. I would know that of all of the family, he was the best educated. Now that might have something to do with when the 1950 census comes out, I just might not find him living on the farm. And so I could expect that I might have more trouble finding him in the census when the 1950 census comes out. I would also want to go back 10 years and see if Walter is his brother. I would also want to go and look up marriage records and see if I could find a marriage record for Walter. I would also wonder why aren't there any girls in the family? If this is his brother, there's a 29-year-old brother and a 26-year-old brother, but the only girl is quite a bit younger. She's 23, and no other sisters. Why wouldn't there be other sisters in the family? Well, because they already got married. Okay, so who did they marry? That's going to be another question I'm going to have as I look at it for the first time. Okay, now I'm going to go to a great-great-grandfather. And so here is Jacob Notman, and here he is in the 1850 census. Now, the 1850 census was the very first census that listed everybody in the family. And so let's see if I can come up with any information about him that I'm going to learn just by reading the census. This census is Oswego County, New York. And actually, this isn't the one that I had planned to show you, but let's go ahead and look at it. Look, here's a great big long family. They've got lots of children. Now, the reason I pulled this up is as I was looking it up, Elizabeth, who was then at only, is that 7 or is that, I will need to study that out. Now, when I'm studying this out and I can't figure out for sure what this age is, how do I do it? I look at nearby entries. So here is a sister. If it's a 4, the sister's 14 and she's 4. A younger sister is 6. That tends to look like 7. But whenever you're looking at letters or numbers, you can very often figure something out by looking around the census page and seeing other people. Here is a strange letter. If I come down here, here's the same strange letter with ARY. So that tells me that it's probably M, Mary. And so that's, whenever you're looking at handwriting, that's something that you do is you look for similar ways of writing the same thing. But I was wondering what Elizabeth looked like in this census. That's why I pulled it up. Because I was looking for, let's see if this one was the one I was looking for. Yes, this is the 10 years later. Here is this family in Ohio. Now, one of these that I pulled up earlier is pretty faint. This isn't the faint one, that's good. When I first look at this page and I'm starting at the top and going down, about the first person I find is Amasa Witham. Now I'm looking for Charles Witham as a child or as an adult. So to see Amasa Witham on the same page is certainly going to tell me, take my paper and pencil that I always keep with me when I'm doing anything family history, and write down Amasa Witham, 1860 census. So I remember to look at him and make sure whether or not that is his brother or other relative. So I come on down and I have to go pretty near the bottom. They don't live very close to each other at all. But I do find Charles Witham, who's 26 years old. He's a farmer. His property is only worth 200 pounds or $200. And he's from Maine. And he's married to Elizabeth, who's 19, and she's from New York. Now they have a 1-year-old son. What do you immediately think of when you find out that they've got a 1-year-old son? What do you think of that maybe you're going to want to know next? Somebody that doesn't have their microphone on, tell me, so that I'm not the only one talking. It's going to make me wonder when they got married. What was somebody else saying? Paul, was it you that was saying something?
Yeah, I would look for their marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in this case, this is a very critical marriage because it tells us very clearly in the marriage record that her maiden name was Notman and his name was Charles Witham. And that's very interesting because in the next census, his name is Charles Everett and her name is Elizabeth. So that was a clue, a very big clue for us as we wanted to find out if Charles Orrin Everett really started out as Charles Orrin Witham. But so this is a 1-year-old son. Now this means that when I look in the 1870 census, I'm going to be looking for an 11-year-old son and additional children. And in fact, that is what I find. That's the one we just looked at too. So those are most of the ones that I had figured out that I wanted to show you. Now I do not read Danish. I do not know handwriting as it was used in Denmark in 1845, but I did look up Charles Niels Otto Mortensen, who's my so many great grandfathers, just to see if he was in any censuses. I particularly wanted to see about him and what his marital status was in different years. So I kind of had to look carefully on this, but I did find this census listed as a source for Niels Mortensen. And it's listed as the 1845 census in Denmark. And by looking at the top of the page, I can see a little bit more. By looking at the index of it, I can see the name of the town, and it is in fact the name of the town where my Danish ancestors are from. Now, but I don't know Danish well enough that my initial look through didn't show me this. But I did know that he was, in this census, supposed to be 27 years old, and his wife is supposed to be 33. So I looked through until I found Niels Mortensen, 27 years old, and I don't read this. I would have to get somebody else to help me figure out what that is. And his wife's name here is listed as Stina, and her that is a nickname. That is not her full name, but she's 33. And then they have two children, 4 and 1. When you read the indexed part, the index of it, you can see that you would expect someone in Denmark to have the last name of Nielsen. And so here is Niels. And so this would be Niels' son, or maybe this is Anna, in which case it would be Niels' daughter. But isn't that interesting? I did not know that my LDS convert ancestors showed up in the census of where they lived before they joined the church and came here. And so, although that's going to take me a little bit of translating and deciphering, it's great for me to know that that census is available for him. Now I'm going to have to go back to my family tree and pull up Niels Mortensen. Because I have another few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of these other censuses that I found about him. I didn't ever find an 1860 census. He came to the United States between 1860 and 1870. So where was he in 1860? I don't know, and maybe we'll yet find that census. But so here, if I go to sources, I will find the list of the censuses that he was in, and I will find that the first census that somebody has found and listed as a source for him is in 1870 in the United States, when he is called Jens Mortensen. And that doesn't really surprise me too much that they would use a Danish name Jens instead of the Danish name Mortensen. This is the one that I was looking at that is not written in fresh ink. It looks almost like after the census taker got home, he added information. He added a lot of information about keeping house. So this takes me a little bit more work to find which was Niels Mortensen. And by 1870, there we go. By 1870, more columns have been added. So let's see. Jens Mortensen, 51, and whoops, I didn't want to move us all over the page. He is from Denmark. That's what I would have expected. His wife, Elizabeth, in the Danish census, she was listed as Stine. Here she's listed as Elizabeth, 36, keeping house, and he's a farmer, and she's from Mississippi. Now that kind of surprises us, doesn't it? And their oldest daughter, or the oldest child here, is from Parowan, and she is 15, and it says her last name is Mortensen. And Benjamin is from Utah. So as I look up this same family in the 1870 census, I find out, I didn't want learn more. I wanted look at the census itself. And so here he is. Is this the one we just looked at? Yes, it's the 1880 I want, not the 1870. Because it's going to help answer, and this is why we have our brain turned on. It's either going to help us answer some questions, or it's going to help us have more questions. In order to be able to get this out of the way, I've got to go again to sources and go down and look for the 1880 census. Now, so he arrived in 1857 here, according to the pioneer overland travel. So I want to keep going down till I get to the 1880 census. And remember, his wife there was listed as Elizabeth, and his wife in Denmark was Stine. So here, let's look at the original record. And again, we're in Parowan. Now, it's always interested me that he would be sent to, that a Dane would be sent to Parowan instead of Sanpete County. And I figured it out. He was sent to Sanpete. He was sent to Parowan because he was a weaver, and a weaver needs wool, and sheep were grown in Parowan. So that led me on a whole new
sheep
and yarn story.
Yeah.
Does somebody have a question? Okay, let's look. Niels Mortensen, 60, farmer, born in Denmark. Elizabeth, same age as before. This time it says Tennessee. And if we pull it over a little bit, we're going to see where the parents are from too. Elizabeth's parents are from Tennessee. David, who is 21, this says that his father was born in Utah. I don't think so, but let's see. And his mother was born in Tennessee. So that tends to suggest that he is a son of Elizabeth. And Otto Niels was born in Utah with a father from Denmark and a mother from Tennessee. So this Utah is where David was born. And then there's Samuel, the same. He was born in Utah with a mother in Denmark, with father in Denmark and a mother in Tennessee. And a Joseph with the same. Now, what does this make you think? Anybody have the thought that maybe he was married twice, that maybe his first wife died, and so succeeding children had a mother born in Tennessee? And so are Tennessee and Mississippi the same? Hardly. They're not very close. But in fact, She lived in Tennessee, went to Mississippi, joined the church, and came to Utah. So that's what I found in succeeding research. Also down here, if I look, there's a Johanna, who's also his wife, who's 50 years old, no children listed, and she's from Sweden. Well, somehow it makes more sense to me that a Dane is going to want to marry somebody else from Scandinavia than somebody from Mississippi. That Mississippi just didn't quite mesh. Now, it looks like I'm going to take a couple of minutes and tell some of the rest of the story. Niels Mortensen's wife, Stina, died only 5 years after coming to Zion. Some say that she died of a broken heart, but at least the trip to Zion was hard on her. And when she got to Zion, she discovered that her daughter, whom they had sent ahead to Zion with the Martin and Willie Handcart Company, froze in Wyoming on the way. And that was very difficult for her to find out that her daughter had died. And not too long after she came to Utah, she was bedridden and needed full-time care. Now, Elizabeth Carson had come to Zion from Mississippi, and she met a fellow, David Lewis, in Salt Lake, and he took her as his plural wife. And he was then called to be an Indian agent in Parowan. So they moved to Parowan. They had 2 children. Then they adopted 2 Indian children. Then he died of a stroke. And so she was left with 4 children to take care of as a widow. And so David's brother said, well, I think probably I ought to rise to the occasion and marry you so that you have a husband that can take care of you. So she married his brother. She had 3 more children. So that then gave her 7 children. And then the brother was called on a mission and left her at home. And his mission was still in Utah, but far enough away that she did not go with him. And she found life very difficult with 7 children and no husband to support her. And so to make money so that she could afford to eat, she worked for Niels Mortensen, taking care of his bedbound wife. And after the wife died, and Niels at that time still had 3 children at home, they were teenagers. And so he had 3 children at home and she had 7 children. And they requested that the church consider granting a divorce, which they did. And so then she married Niels Mortensen. So then between the 2 of them, they had 10 children at home. But at least there was somebody to take care of the house and somebody to take care of the farm. And so then they went ahead and finished raising all of her children and all of his children. And in the process, imported sheep from Europe and from the Eastern United States and upgraded the kind of wool quality, and then turned that part of Southern Utah into a multi-million-dollar wool export economy. So that really was interesting to me, especially since I enjoy knitting, to find out that story. But you see, if I had not had a curious mind, as I looked and found him twice in the census with a wife from the South, and he's a Dane, I would not have explored to find out what the story here is. And in some cases, I might find out that someone that had found him in the census earlier had listed them as a source for the wrong person. But in this case, they were listed as the right person. So what I think would be a very good thing for people to put, for a ward to put on their family history plan is to encourage members to find their, what we're calling the 8 greats, their great grandparents, and those closer to them, to find those families in all of the censuses. And if they have their brains turned on as they find them in the censuses, they're going to find stories, just like I found this story on Nils Mortensen with the marriages and the deaths and all of the babies that needed to be taken care of, and the knitting that needed to be done, and the wool, the sheep that needed to be imported. And so, you know, you study the census with your brain turned on, you're just about to care more about your family and be interested in things that they do, and what they contributed to you as you come along. So we will have more classes later in the year where we talk about specific censuses, teach us what, and which censuses are there in addition to this. This is called the population schedule. What other censuses do we have in addition to the population schedule? Like some censuses had a separate census for everybody that died that year, or for all the Civil War veterans that year. And so we'll talk about more schedules for different censuses. And we'll also talk about how to use, it's called Sheets in Google, under Google. It's called spreadsheets under Adobe. But we'll talk about how to use that to find other people in the same county that might be related to you. So we'll do that one census. I think that's a really good searching tool. And so we'll do that one time. So that's my question, or my lesson. Any questions about this or something else? No questions?
So I have
Okay.
I have a relative who died in Nebraska, and I went back there when he was inducted into a Hall of Fame, but the area where he lived, they have several different family cemeteries. Is there a way to link those? They have the same last name, but they were German, and I think they did fight a little bit. So
you're wanting to find all of the family members,
yes,
and you can kind of guess who they are because they're buried in family cemeteries?
yes.
To link them, you have to just do more research.
Okay.
But you can enter them into Family Search without knowing that relationship.
Okay.
Let's see, you do that under, is it under Find or under Search? It's either under, I think it's right here under Find, and it's going to give us the opportunity to add somebody new, and darn it, Diane, I could have done it a year ago.
Okay.
But it's there, and you have the opportunity to do it, and we could research it and remind ourselves how, if Diane doesn't already know us and tell us, by going to the Help Center
Okay.
and ask how to enter unrelated people. Diane, do you have that answer?
You're muted.
Maybe Paul does.
Diane's muted.
Adding unrelated people to family tree,
Uh-huh.
you just go to, here, let me pull it up so I can tell you exactly. You just go to tree. Oh, I gotta log in again.
This is an important thing to be able to do, particularly if, for
On
example, all of your,
recent, click on recents, and at the drop down menu, it says add unconnected person.
Okay, under recent.
Okay.
If, for example, your family is in an area, maybe in Norway, where everybody that lives on a specific farm is probably related, then you might want to add all of the unrelated people until you can figure out exactly how they are related. Also, you're probably in that kind of a case going to want to have an individual database that you can keep track of all of that in.
Both may help, because if you have it on Family Search, like Nancy said before, it generates hints. And if you put it on Ancestry, again, it will generate hints. So but sometimes it's helpful to have it in your own database first, because that's the easiest way to get it on Ancestry. But if you have it in Family Search already, then it's easy to get it into your database as well. But we could have a whole class on that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. I'm finished. Unless somebody else has a question or a comment.
I do.
Go ahead.
Census is back in the 1600s, mid 1600s to 1675, back in Virginia and the colonies.
Are you asking or telling?
I'm
There's
asking.
well, it depends. It depends on the area. Sometimes there's those earlier, just local censuses. You have to look in the family history, the Family Search catalog, and just see what's available for that county, even just the county as well as the state. I would look more on a state level, because that's before we are the United States. But you could also look on a county level just to see if there's anything there. But the Family Search catalog is going to be your best bet to find anything prior to the organization of the United States.
My experience is more limited, but I would think that in that time period, you're gonna have more luck with probate and land records than you are with looking for a
Church records.
census.
I look for church too.
Yeah.
Tax.
Tax, yeah. It's a good one too.
Well, I hope somebody got the idea tonight to look for their family in more censuses. Or if you've got a problem line that you haven't solved, to attack them in the census and see what you can find there. Okay, Diane, your turn.
Thank you all for coming. We're going to learn some great things about the census over this year, and indexing and finding your ancestors, just a lot of different things. So I'm so glad that you came. If there's other things that you would like to learn, shoot me an email at legacydiane@gmail.com. We can find specialists. If we don't know how to teach it, we can find someone who can. So and also, if you have people in your wards, or if you have a special problem with anything, when I say not personal problems, but well, I'm happy to listen to that too. But if you have a genealogy problem, please reach out to me, or if there's somebody in your ward that does, because if I don't have a little bit of smattering of information about it, I know somebody who will. And so I can get you in contact with the right person that would be able to help with that particular area. So don't ever think anything is a dead end or it's unsolvable, because you can't believe the technology and everything that's out there that can help now. So that's what I have to say. And I hope, spread the word. We have it all on Facebook about our Saturday activity. I'm asking that people just send me an email if they're coming, so I know how much food to buy. So we're having breakfast. So
Oh, Alice, why don't you come?
Yeah, please, Alice, just hop on a plane. So it's going to be, I think it'll be fun, beneficial about the census and indexing. So maybe send an email out to your ward, let them know just to contact me if they would like to come, and we'll be excited about that. So
Brother
thank you all
McDougall, we're
again.
glad you came tonight.
Glad that have new faces. I love it. So we need a closing prayer. Brother Hutchison, would you mind giving us a closing prayer?
Yes, be glad to. Our Heavenly Father, we thank thee for the opportunity